everyone, FIDE Master Dennis Monokroussos here, and today and for the next couple of weeks at least we'll look at some games that I played in the Indiana State Chess Championship, which as of this recording was played just a couple of days ago, or finished just a couple of days ago, and which I won. So I'm co-champion, had the better tie breaks though. So this is my round one game against Bernard Parham Jr., and some of you may have heard of him. Well, Indianans, I'm sure, have heard of him, but even those of you outside of it may have heard of him. And the reason is that his dad is the big popularizer of this e4, practically any first move from black, and then queen h5 garbage. So some people are calling this the matrix. All right, I'd prefer to just call it junk, or at least maybe give the Parhams credit for this. Anyway, Parham Sr., who's a master for many years, played this lots and lots, and okay, I don't know that his results with this were any better than they would have been without it, but his son, who's an A player, took it up. I think his son might have been an expert very, very briefly, I'm not sure, but it's typically an A player, and that's who I played in this game. Now, all the Indiana players have known about this because of the Parhams for many years, and one such Indiana player, although I guess now he's a former Indiana player, is Jason Doss. And he was an ICC administrator, and through that became friends with Nakamura. And Nakamura took this up around 2005 and played it a little bit, without especially good results, but it was interesting, and gave him a little extra notoriety. And anyway, he's written an article about this in one of those Secrets of Opening Surprises books that New in Chess puts out. So I think this was a couple of years ago now. Yeah, let me take a look at the copyright date. Yeah, 2007. So anyway, he discusses this. I discussed it on my blog before his article, but when he was still playing this a lot. My blog, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I hope you'll check it out, is chessmind.powerblogs.com. No W's, just you can put the HTTP if you want, and then chessmind.powerblogs.com. Anyway, I'll show you some of my analysis, some of Nakamura's analysis, and some of the games that he played that he doesn't mention in the book, and then also I think an improvement, that may be an important improvement over some of his analysis. And of course, I'll show you my win over Parham itself. Okay, so here if black wants to be a wuss, and it's perfectly fine. Okay, so knight c6 is kind of a normal move. Bishop c4. Okay, you don't fall for 4-move checkmate here. You play g6. And we don't fall for the checkmate again. We play knight f6. Okay, bishop g7, d3, d6. Yeah, so I should say knight e2 is fairly important to prevent knight to d4. And then here we don't want to allow bishop to g4 for white, so h3. And okay, this is a playable position. It's certainly nothing special for white. But this is a kind of line that can arise. And Nakamura mentions this as a possible position in his article. However, I much more appreciate the spirit of knight to f6, and for a couple of reasons. Well, let's say at least three reasons. So one reason is that I think it's just a good move in the position, and I like the idea of just seizing the initiative straight away. I mean, I don't mind the idea of developing all of my pieces while white's queen is running around in circles. The second reason why I like it is that I think it's just objectively good. So there's the kind of subjective thing that I like grabbing the initiative here. Objectively, I think it's as strong as anything else, probably. And third, I think it kind of turns the table psychologically, in that white is playing a real, how to put this in an appropriate way. White's basically saying, I don't think very much of you, and I can play anything against you. And so black is essentially turning the tables and expressing a similarly scornful attitude towards white's opening and perhaps white's abilities as a chess player and so on. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. So knight f6, I think, takes the right kind of attitude. Now, probably the best move here, the only principal move for white, is to grab the pawn. Okay, bishop e7, and now white has has a lot of choices here. So let's talk about a couple lines we'll just briefly mention, and then we'll get into the slightly more meaty variations. So I've got 5 moves altogether. Okay, d3 is just a very safe, sane move, protecting the e-pawn so the queen can go scurrying away wherever. So knight c6, queen f4, castles. And I basically think that black is in great shape here. I think he's slightly better, even counting the pawn. So d5 is coming, rook e8 is coming. e5 is not a threat because of things like knight takes e5, followed by bishop to b4 check and rook to e8. So no worries here for black at all. Okay, next line, queen to d4. And this actually I think is a much more interesting idea. And the thought is that we're essentially playing this like a center counter with reversed colors. And okay, black is going to be up a couple of tempi on that, so he's got knight f6 and bishop to e7 in, which white wouldn't have in a center counter. But, okay, black has, of course, given up a pawn, and it's not clear that bishop to e7 is that fantastic. So it enables castling straight away, but the bishop doesn't really do much on e7, and it plugs up the e-file. So this is at least interesting. So I think maybe best is just to castle straight away. And now e5 seems to me to be just too risky. I think black gets a great game with a continuation like this. Okay, and I mean, just all of black's pieces are out. And all right, just to continue the variation a little bit more, white has just a horrible position here. So he's up 2 pawns, but black can win the d pawn at his leisure by just playing queen d7, rook a to d8, and then taking on d3. Both of white's bishops are pretty stupid. White's king is stuck in the center. Also, the a2 pawn is hanging for what it's worth. So this is just at least clearly better and probably winning for black with good play. So after castling, I think white should be a little bit more sane and play knight c3. Okay, knight c6, and now d5. So black really does want to rip the board open if possible. And there are a lot of ways that white can play. When I was doing my analysis of this a long time ago, bishop to b5 seemed like the feistiest choice for white. But I think that in this position, black is at least equal. White's queen is slightly strange on a2, let's say. And although black is a pawn down and white can even take the pawn on b5, the development advantage is significant. Black has better central control. His light-squared bishop is going to be very beautifully placed wherever. He might play d4 and bishop to e6, further and try to embarrass the white queen in some cases, or d4 and bishop to b7. So lots of prospects there, and white's king is still stuck in the center. So not a winning position for black, or close to it, but a very good position and probably a dangerous position for white. So that's queen d4. Okay, line 3 is bishop to e2. And this has 2 points. One is to, of course, foster the kingside development and get his king to safety. But the other idea is that one of black's main ideas, well, I shouldn't say main ideas, but one of black's typical ideas is to play knight c6 and then knight to d4, or sometimes knight to b4. And with the bishop on e2, it can drop back to d1. And that's perhaps slightly more elegant and efficient than playing knight to a3. Okay. Be that as it may, knight c6, queen f4, and now d5 leaves white with some unpleasant choices. Okay. There's a game on ICC